Hello everyone, I am S. Jyoti from TGWOTC Women's Outlook. Today I am going to discuss about band theory of solids. In this topic, we are going to learn about classification of substance, types of solids, classification of solids based on the conductivity, energy bands of solids, semiconductors and its types. Okay, before we are going to details of this band theory, first of all we have to know basic definitions, that is classification of substance, types of solids and etc. Okay, let us see one by one. The first one is classification of the substance. Okay, substance. What is meant by substance? We know that substance very well. If you take any substance that is composed of atoms, and these substance is classified into three types, that is solids, liquids and gases. We already know so what is meant by solids, liquid and gases, right? Okay, just recall them. What is meant by solid? Solid means what? In solids, all the particles are tightly or closely packed, and the solids have a fixed shape and fixed value. The force of attraction between the particles is strong. The examples of solids are solid ice, sugar, rock, wood, etc. These are the examples of solids. So, in these type of examples, all the particles are tightly or closely packed, and these all are having particular shape and particular value. The force of attraction between the particles is strong. This is about solids. Okay. Let us see liquids. What is meant by liquids? So, in liquids, the particles are less tightly packed as compared to solids. As compared to solids, these particles are less tightly packed, and liquids take the shape of the container in which they are kept. So liquids do not have any particular shape. They take shape of the container. Liquids have fixed value, but they do not have any fixed shape. The force of attraction between the particles is weaker than the solids. Here, the force of attraction between the particles is weaker than the solid. Means in solids, all the particles are tightly packed. That's why the force of attraction between them is strong. But in case of liquids, the particles are less tightly packed. That's why the force of attraction between them is weaker. And the examples of liquids are water, milk, bread, etc. These are the examples of liquids. Okay, next one is gases. Gases means what? In gases, all the particles are far apart from each other, and the force of attraction between the particles is negligible. They can move freely in the space because all the particles are far apart. That's why the force of attraction between them is negligible and they can move freely. This gas is neither a fixed volume nor a fixed shape. Gases do not have any fixed shape and fixed volume. And examples of gases are air, helium, oxygen, etc. These are the examples of gases. Okay, let us see diagrammatically solids, liquids and gases. The first one is solids. If you observe carefully, here all the particles are tightly packed. That's why the force of attraction between them is strong. And these particles are having particular shape and value. And the examples of solids are what? Ice, solid ice, rock, wood, etc. These are the examples of solids. And liquids. So here the particles are little apart and compared to the solids. That's why here the force of attraction between them is less when compared to the solids. And the solids do not have any fixed shape. They take shape of the container. The examples of liquids are water, milk, bread, etc. These are the examples of liquids. And next one is gases. Okay, here all the particles are far apart from each other. Okay, when we compare to liquid, the particles are far apart from each other. That's why the force of attraction between them is negligible. Gases do not have any fixed shape and fixed value. The examples of gases are oxygen, helium, nitrogen, etc. These are the examples of gases. So this is about solids, liquids and gases. Okay, next one is classification of solids. On the basis of internal arrangement of atoms. So the internal arrangement of atoms, solids are further classified into two types, that is crystalline solids and amorphous solids. Based on the arrangement of atoms, these solids are further classified into two types, crystalline solids and amorphous solids. Okay, first one, crystalline solid. So crystalline solid means the atoms are arranged in a regular order or called crystalline solid. So in this crystalline solid, all the atoms are arranged in a regular order. They are called crystalline solids. In other words, we can say a crystalline solid, there is a periodicity and a regularity of its component of atoms in all the directions. So if atoms are arranged in a periodicity or regularity, then those type of solids are called crystalline solids. The examples of crystalline solids are sodium chloride, diamond, sugar, etc. These are examples of crystalline solids. In these type of crystalline solids, the atoms are arranged in a regular order, or they are arranged periodically in the all directions. Those type of solids are called crystalline solids. And the atoms are arranged in a definite geometrical shape. So in crystalline solid, atoms are arranged in a definite geometrical shape. They have a definite melting point, and crystalline solids are having definite melting point. They are anisotropic. These crystalline solids are anisotropic. Anisotropic means what? Anisotropic is nothing but the physical properties such as thermal conductivity or refractive index and etc. They are different in different directions. If these physical properties are different in different directions, then that is called anisotropic. Here, these crystalline solids are anisotropic. Anisotropic means these thermal conductivity and refractive index is different in different directions. That's why this crystalline solid is anisotropic, and they are real solids. Crystalline solids are real solids. In crystalline solids, all the atoms are arranged in regular order. They have definite melting point, and crystalline solids are anisotropic. Crystalline solids are the real solids. This is about crystalline solids. Next one is amorphous solids. So amorphous solid means they are not crystalline solids. So they do not have any definite arrangement or called amorphous solids. So if you take amorphous solids, the atoms are do not have any definite arrangement, or they do not have any geometrical shape. They are called amorphous solids, and these amorphous solids is also called gaseous solids. The examples of these amorphous solids is glass, rubber, powder, etc. These are the examples of amorphous solids. Means these are not having any geometrical shape. That's why they are called amorphous solids. They do not have definite arrangement of atoms. They do not have any geometrical shape. So the substance of the solids do not have definite shape or geometrical shape. Those solids are called amorphous solids. And these amorphous solids do not have any definite melting point. But in crystalline solids, they have definite melting point. In case of amorphous solids, they do not have definite melting point. And they are isotropic. Crystalline solids are anisotropic. But these amorphous solids are isotropic. Isotropic means that physical quantities such as conductivity of heat, refractive index, etc. are same in all directions. If this physical property is same in all directions, then that is called isotropic. So here amorphous solids are isotropic in nature, and they are not a real solids. Amorphous solids are not real solids. Crystalline solids are the real solids. So based on the arrangement of atoms, the solids are classified into two types, crystalline solids and amorphous solids. So crystalline solid means they have fixed shape or geometrical shape. In case of amorphous solids, they do not have any fixed shape. Okay, let us see diagrammatically. This is for crystalline solid and this is about amorphous solids. So here if you observe, here all the atoms are having periodical nature in all direction. But here the atoms do not have any periodical nature, or they do not have any particular arrangement. But here all the atoms are arranged in order wise, periodically in the all direction. That's why these type of solids are called crystalline solids, and crystalline solids are the real solids. But in case of amorphous solids, the atoms do not follow any geometrical shape. That's why they are called amorphous solids. And amorphous solids examples is glass, mica, rubber, etc. These are the examples of amorphous solids. So this is about crystalline solids and amorphous solids. Okay, next one is classification of solids on the basis of conductivity. So before topic we are learning about solids and the different types of solids based on the arrangement of atoms. Now classification of solid on the basis of conductivity. Based on the conductivity, these solids are further classified into three types, that is conductors, insulators and semiconductors. Let us see what is mean by conductors, insulators and semiconductors. So based on the conductivity, these conductors can pass current easily through them. So they are called conductors. So conductors means they can pass electricity through them easily. Those type of solids are called conductors. The examples of conductors is metals. All the metals are good conductors because all the metals are carry the current easily. That's why they are called good conductors. So conductors is nothing but they can carry the current easily through them. That's why they are called conductors. And insulators. So insulator means insulators are those substances through which electricity cannot pass easily. So in case of insulators, the electric current cannot pass easily. They are called insulators. So in insulators, current is cannot carry easily. Those are called insulators. And examples of insulator is rubber, wood, mica, etc. So these rubber, wood cannot carry the current. That's why these are the examples of insulator because these are not carry the current through them. And semiconductors. So semiconductors means the conductivity is rise between conductors and insulators. They are called semiconductors. So the conductivity is between conductors and insulators. Those are called semiconductors. And examples of semiconductors is silicon, germanium, carbon. These are the most commonly used semiconductors. Semiconductors are used very well and in integrated chips. So based on the conductivity, the solids are classified into three types: conductors, insulators and semiconductors. Conductors carry the current easily, insulator cannot carry the current through them easily, and semiconductors, the conductivity between conductors and insulators. Okay, next one is energy bands of solids. Energy bands of solid. First of all, we have to know what is meant by energy bands. So the range of energy possessed by an electron in a solid is known as energy band. So energy band is nothing but the range of energy is possessed by an electron in a solid, that is called energy band. We have different kinds of bands are there. The most important bands are valency band, conduction band and forbidden gap. Let us see first one, valency band. So valency band means the range of energies possessed by a valency electrons is known as valency band. So the range of energies possessed by a valency electron is called valency band. In general, the valency band has electrons of highest energy. So in valency band, electrons are having highest energies. Sometimes this valency band is completely filled and sometimes it is partially filled. In case of inert gases, the valency band is completely filled. But in case of other, the valency band is partially filled. Next one is conduction band. So the band of energies of high energies possessed by a free electrons. In valency band, valency electrons, here the energies is possessed by a free electrons is known as conduction band. So in conduction band, the energy is possessed by a free electrons. That band is called conduction band. And conduction band is generally empty. It accepts the electron from the valency band. So generally conduction band is empty, but it accepts the electrons from the valency band. The electrons reach conduction band to valency band, then it becomes free electrons. When the electrons are in valency band, those electrons are called valency electrons. If electrons here move from valency bond to conduction bond, then that electrons are called free electrons. These electrons are responsible for electrical conduction. These free electrons are only the responsible of electrical conductivity. These valency electrons do not carry the current. And next one is a forbidden gap. So forbidden gap is nothing but the gap between conduction band and valency band. So there is a separation between conduction band and valency band. That separation is called forbidden gap. Let us see diagrammatically what is conduction band, valency band and forbidden gap. So here let us consider two atoms. We know that atom consists of central nucleus, right? In this nucleus, protons and neutrons are present, and electrons are revolving around the particular orbits. So this is the nucleus, first shell, second shell, and third shell, or outermost shell. And this is also nucleus, first cell, second cell, and outermost cell or valency shell. The electrons in the outermost shell is called valency shell or valency electrons. The electrons in the outermost shell is called valency electron. These valency electrons are having high energies. Okay, can these valency electrons can carry the current? No, these valency electrons cannot carry the current. Why? Because these valency electrons are tightly bound with nucleus. That's why these valency electrons cannot carry the current, even they have high energies. But who carries current? So, if we give energy to the atom, then these electrons are gain the energy and released from the valency shell, or the electrons are jumped from the valency shell. Then that jumped electrons are called free electrons. So these free electrons are having high energy, and these free electrons are responsible for the electrical conductivity. So free electrons are only the responsible of conductivity. These valency electrons do not carry the current. Free electrons carry the current. Okay, so these valency electrons are in valency shell. So the range of valency electrons in valency band and the range of free electrons are in conduction band. Or these electrons are also called conduction electrons. These are having high energy, and these conduction electrons are free electrons are the responsible for the current. These valency electrons are not carry the current. Generally this valency band is completely filled or partially filled, but this conduction band is completely empty. When if we give the energy, these valency electrons are gain the energy and jumped from the valency bond to conduction band. Then that electrons are called free electrons. These free electrons are responsible for the conductivity. So this is about valency band, conduction band and forbidden gap. Okay. So this is about conductors, insulators and semiconductors. As we discussed earlier, conductors pass electricity through them easily. Semiconductors are carry the current by applying some energies, and insulators cannot carry the current because there is a large forbidden gap between them. And in case of insulator, there is a small forbidden gap. But here conductors, there is no forbidden gap. Here conduction band and valency band is overlap each other. Okay, let us see conductors. In conductors, there is no forbidden gap. There is no forbidden gap between valency band and conduction band. So the electrons from valency band freely enter into the conduction band due to the overlapping of bands. So here the valency electrons are easily moved from valency band to conduction band because there is no gap between conduction band and valency band. That's why the electrons are easily moved from valency band to conduction band. When the electrons are moved from valency band to conduction band, that electrons are free electrons, and these electrons carry the current. That's why conductors carry the current through them easily. And next one is insulators. So in insulators, there is a large forbidden gap between the conduction band and valency band. Okay, this is the valency band and this is the conduction band. Here there is a large gap between conduction band and valency band. So that's why electrons cannot move from valency band to conduction band. So if electrons can move from valency band to conduction band, they need high amount of energy, almost 3 electron volts or more than 3 electron volts. Generally, this is not possible. That's why insulators cannot carry the current. Okay, next one is the semiconductors. In semiconductors, there is a small forbidden gap between valency band and conduction band. If you give little amount of energy, electrons can easily jump from valency band to conduction band. Okay, at 0 degrees temperature, the conduction band is completely empty. Okay, at 0 degrees Kelvin, this conduction band is completely empty and the valency band having some electrons. Okay, when a small amount of energy is supplied, then the electrons can easily jump to the forbidden gap. Okay, if you give small amount of energy, these electrons are gain the energy and jump from valency band to conduction band. And these conduction electrons are responsible for the electrical conductivity. So, the forbidden gap between them is 0.7 electron volts for germanium and 1.1 electron volts for silicon. If you give this amount of energy, electrons can easily jump from valency band to conduction band. That's why the semiconductors conductivity is lies between conductors and insulators. Conductors can pass easily current through them. Insulators cannot pass current. But in case of semiconductors, these are carry the current from valency band to conduction band. So based on the band theory, conductors, insulators and semiconductors. Conductors, they do not have any forbidden gap between valency band and conduction band, and insulators, there is a large gap between valency band and conduction band. But in case of semiconductor, there is a small forbidden gap between valency band and conduction band. If we give small amount of energy, the electrons can easily jump from valency band to conduction band. Then that conduction electrons are carry the current through them. So that is about semiconductors. Next, the bonds in semiconductors. So semiconductors means the conductivity between conductors and insulators. So generally in periodic table, the fourth group elements are considered as the semiconductors. Fourth group elements means like carbon, silicon, germanium. These are considered as the semiconductors because all the fourth group elements have ns2 np2 configuration. Means they have 4 valency electrons, and these 4 valency electrons form 4 covalent bond with neighboring atoms. So the semiconductors having 4 valency electrons, and all the 4 valency electrons form covalent bond with neighboring atoms, and their valency band is completely filled and conduction band is completely empty at absolute temperature. So at absolute temperature, all the 4 valency electrons are form covalent bond with neighboring atoms. That's why the valency band is completely filled and conduction band is completely empty at absolute zero. However, at room temperature, a few electrons in the valency band acquires thermal energy and move to the conduction band. So, due to the room temperature, few electrons are gain the energy and they are jump from valency bond to conduction band. Okay, so if the electrons are jump from valency bond to conduction band, there is no electron in the valency shell in respective place. So if the lack of electron is create the holes in the valency band. The lack of electron is called a hole. So here in semiconductors, uh, holes are carry the current and electrons are also carry the current. So in semiconductors, both electrons and holes are responsible for the electrical conductors. Hence, the charge carriers in the semiconductors are two types, that is electrons and holes, because these electrons and holes both are carry the electrical current. So which group elements are considered as semiconductors? Fourth group elements are considered semiconductors. So examples of fourth group elements are carbon, silicon, germanium. These are having tetravalency, and all the four valency electrons create the covalent bond with neighboring atoms, and conduction band is completely empty, valency band is completely filled at absolute zero, but at room temperature some of electrons are moved from valency band to conduction band. So the lack of electron in the valency band is called hole, and in semiconductors there are two types of charge carriers, that is electrons and holes. Both are responsible for the current. Okay, let us see the types of semiconductors. So here there are two types of semiconductors depending upon the purity. So purity depending upon the purity, these semiconductors are divided into two types, that is intrinsic semiconductors and extrinsic semiconductors. So intrinsic means pure form of silicon or germanium, and intrinsic means impure form. These extrinsic semiconductors are again classified into two types, that is n-type semiconductors and p-type semiconductors. Let us see one by one what is intrinsic semiconductors and extrinsic semiconductors. First one is intrinsic semiconductors. So intrinsic semiconductors are pure semiconductor materials, are called intrinsic semiconductors. So the pure form of silicon or pure form of germanium is called intrinsic semiconductors. Thus these semiconductors possess poor conductivity because they are available in pure form. These pure semiconductors cannot carry the good current. That's why their conductivity is poor. And the elemental and compound semiconductors can be intrinsic type. So elemental and component semiconductors can be intrinsic type. And the energy gap in semiconductors is very small. We know that the energy gap between semiconductors is very small. So even at room temperature, some of electrons from the valency band can jump from conduction band. We already discussed before. So at room temperature, the electrons are moved from valency band to conduction band at room temperature. But at absolute temperature, valency band is completely filled and conduction band is completely empty. But at room temperature, some of electrons from valency band to jump from valency band to conduction band due to the thermal agitation or thermal energy. And the jump of electron in the conduction band adds one electron in the conduction band. Okay, so here electron is jump from valency band to conduction band. That's why the electron in the conduction band adds one electron in the conduction band. And hole creates in the valency band because one electron is moving from valency band to conduction band. If this electron is moving from valency band to conduction band, there is additional electron in the conduction band and there is a lack of electron in the valency band. This lack of electron is created a hole. And so here hole is creating and an extra electron is creating in the conduction band. So this process is called generation of electron hole pair. And in pure semiconductor, the number of electrons in the conduction band and the number of holes in the valency band is equal. Okay. So in intrinsic semiconductors, the number of electrons in the conduction band and the number of holes in the valency band are equal. So we know that in semiconductors, both electrons and holes are carry the current. But in semiconductor, the number of electrons and number of holes are equal. So here observe this diagram. The lack of electron is create the hole. And here blue color is indicating hole and this yellow color is indicating electron. This is pure silicon. So the pure form of semiconductors are called intrinsic semiconductors. So they are pure form, that's why they have poor conductivity. But okay, for better conductivity, we have to add impurities. Okay, so the impure form of semiconductors are called extrinsic semiconductors. So a selected impurity is added to the intrinsic semiconductor to make an extrinsic semiconductor. So extrinsic semiconductor means they are not pure form. So they are called extrinsic semiconductor. If it is pure form, then it is called intrinsic. But this is not pure form. That's why this is called extrinsic semiconductor. So we have to add selected impurity, that is create the extrinsic semiconductors. We do not have any other impurities. We have to add impurities on the basis of pentavalent or trivalent. So the addition of impurities to the semiconductors is called doping. So doping is a process. The type and quantity of impurity addition is closely controlled during the preparation of extrinsic semiconductors. So for better conductivity, we have to add impurities. So the addition of impurity is called doping. So we have to add trivalent impurities or pentavalent impurities only. We do not add any other impurities. Okay, in extrinsic semiconductors are again classified into two types. Okay, generally semiconductors are two types: intrinsic semiconductors and extrinsic semiconductors. Again, these extrinsic semiconductors are two types, that is N-type semiconductors and P-type semiconductors. Let us see what is meant by N-type semiconductors and P-type semiconductors. Okay, this is about N-type semiconductors. So, when a pentavalent impurity is added to the pure semiconductor, then it is become N-type semiconductor. So, I already discussed before, the addition of impurities is called doping. And here there are two types of dopings are there, that is pentavalent impurities and trivalent impurities. Only selected impurities is added to the pure semiconductor. For example, if pentavalent impurity is added to pure semiconductor, then it is become N-type semiconductor. A pentavalent elements belongs to fifth group elements. So pentavalent elements are belongs to fifth group elements. Fifth group elements are nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, bismuth. These are belongs to fifth group elements. These fifth group elements are having 5 valency electrons in the valency shell. Okay, these pentavalent elements are having 5 valency electrons and they are belongs to fifth group. So they are having 5 valency electrons. So in the figure, phosphorus is used to impuridium silicon crystals. So here this is pure semiconductor, silicon semiconductor. Okay, here we are going to add impurities on the basis of pentavalent impurity. So fifth group elements, let us take any fifth group element. Here I am taking phosphorus. So phosphorus belongs to fifth group element and silicon belongs to fourth group element. So fourth group elements having trivalency electrons. Sorry, not tetravalency electrons. And phosphorus is belongs to fifth group elements. So this phosphorus having 5 valency electrons and silicon having 4 valency electrons. All the 4 valency electrons create a covalent bond with neighboring atoms. Here this phosphorus having an extra electron. So all the 4 atoms are form a covalent bond and they are stable. But here this phosphorus having extra electron. So in this, out of 5 electrons, 4 will participate for covalent bonds with neighboring atoms and 1 electron is left free. In the crystal we find such many electrons. So here this is 1 atom. For an entire crystal we find many such free electrons and also we get more free electrons from due to the thermal agitation. So due to the thermal agitation we get more free electrons. So in N-type semiconductors we get more free electrons when compared to the holes. So in N-type semiconductors there is an extra electron is there. This is always try to donate an electron to stability. Okay, that's why this is called donor impurity. So and here this N-type semiconductor is having high electrons when compared to the holes. So here electrons are the majority charge carriers and holes are the minority charge carriers. So this impurity is providing an extra electron. That's why pentavalent is always called the donor impurity, because this is always try to donate an electron to stability. This is about N-type semiconductors. So, if pentavalent impurity is added to pure semiconductor, then it is become N-type semiconductor. So, N-type semiconductors belongs to fifth group elements. These fifth group elements having high valency electrons in the valency shell. And here electrons are the majority charge carriers, holes are the minority charge carriers. And this pentavalent impurity is called donor impurity, because this is always try to donate an extra electron. That's why this is called donor impurity. And next one is P-type semiconductor. So when a trivalent impurity is added to pure semiconductor, then it is become P-type semiconductor. So if pentavalent impurity is added to pure semiconductor, that it belongs to N-type semiconductor. But if trivalent impurity is added to pure semiconductor, then it is become a P-type semiconductors. Okay, a trivalent element will have three valency electrons in the third group elements or trivalent elements. So these trivalent impurity means these trivalent elements are having three valency electrons in the valency shell, and this trivalent impurity is belongs to third group elements. Okay, in the figure, boron is used to impure a semiconductor silicon crystal. So here this is a pure silicon crystal. Here we are going to add impurities based on the trivalent impurities. So I am using here boron. This boron belongs to third group element. So this boron having three valency electrons and this silicon having four valency electrons. So out of four electrons, three are involving covalent bond, but one lack of electron is there. This lack of electron is create the holes in the lack of electron creates the holes. So in entire crystal we get such many holes, and due to the thermal agitation again some electrons are moving from valence band to conduction band. So here also we get some more holes. So in p-type semiconductors, so holes are the majority charge carriers and electrons are the minority charge carriers. And since each impurity of atom is providing an extra hole, so in p-type semiconductor, so each one is creating an extra hole, and this is always trying to accept one electron to stability. So that's why this is called acceptor impurity. So p-type semiconductors means what? Trivalent impurity is added to pure semiconductors, then it is become a p-type semiconductors, and p-type semiconductors having three valency electrons, and out of four valency electrons, three are involved in the covalent bond and one lack of electron is there, that is creating one hole in a crystal with such many holes, and due to the thermal agitation again we get more holes. So in the p-type semiconductors, holes are majority charge carriers and electrons are the minority charge carriers. So these holes are always accept the electrons to stability. That's why this type of impurity is called acceptor impurity. Extrinsic semiconductors are two types: p-type semiconductors and n-type semiconductors. So n-type semiconductor means a pentavalent impurity is added to pure semiconductor, then it is become n-type semiconductor. A trivalent impurity is added to pure semiconductor, then it is become p-type semiconductor. In p-type semiconductors, holes are the majority charge carriers when compared to electrons. And in n-type semiconductors, electrons are the majority charge carriers, holes are the minority charge carriers. We know that in semiconductors, both electrons and holes are carry the current. In intrinsic semiconductors, the number of holes and number of electrons are equal. And next one is Fermi energy level. So what is meant by Fermi energy level? So the Fermi energy level is nothing but the highest energy level that an electron can occupy at absolute zero temperature is known as Fermi energy level, or simply we can say the Fermi energy level lies between the valency band and conduction band. At absolute zero temperature, the electrons are in the lowest energy state. Okay, in simple we can say the Fermi energy level, that is the average energy level between the conduction band and valency band. Okay, we all discussed these intrinsic semiconductors, extrinsic semiconductors, right? So in intrinsic semiconductors, the number of electrons and the number of holes are equal, means the number of electrons in the conduction band and the number of holes in the valency band are equal. That's why this Fermi energy level is between valency band and conduction band. In extrinsic semiconductors, we have two types of semiconductors, that is n-type semiconductors and p-type semiconductors. In n-type semiconductors, the electrons in the conduction band is more than the holes in the valency band. So electrons are the majority charge carriers in n-type. Holes are the minority charge carriers in the holes are the minority charge carriers. So here electrons are the majority charge carriers. That's why this Fermi energy level shift towards to the conduction band. And in p-type semiconductors, so in p-type semiconductors, holes are the majority charge carriers and electrons are the minority charge carriers. That's why this here the Fermi energy level is shifted towards the valency band. So this is about Fermi energy level. So in this session, we are learn about conductors, semiconductors, insulators, types of semiconductors, and Fermi energy level. Okay, this is about band theory. I hope you understand. Thank you all.